Edge is the Royal Rumble winner 2021. Guys, General Gerry from the Wrestling Juggernauts. Today we're going to be discussing everything that happened in the Royal Rumble. For those that are new to my type of reviews, I give a grid towards the end. 0 is non-functioning, it wasn't even a show. Number 1 is like Victory Road 2011. Number 10, I don't think I've given a 10 yet. So, we're going to give a score at the end of this, and what my thoughts are on this. We'll also be grading every single match as well. Bit of a mixed bag with this one, I'll be honest. I thought the pay-per-view overall was pretty solid. I know a lot of, people just want to look for something that's not there. I want to give yous a bit of a headway. I watched AEW's first show, pay-per-view, and I gave it a high grade because it deserved a high grade. I feel as if wrestling fans now don't give props when an actual company or companies do good because of this tribalistic, I want AEW to win, I want WWE mentality. Look, if a show does good, I'm gonna say it does good. If a show does bad, it does really bad. I think this kind of rivalry between AEW and WWE has clouded people's judgment as what real, true, entertaining wrestling really is. There's people that are actually angry Edge won. We'll get into that in a minute, but this angry kind of mentality, he's an old-timer, yet you got Sting in AEW, and I don't think there's anything wrong with Sting in AEW. I want to put that in perspective. There's nothing wrong with Sting in AEW. There's nothing wrong with Chris Jericho in AEW. But either all of it is okay, or none of it is okay. That's what wrestling is. Either all of it is okay or none of it is okay. If you're gonna let off some slides on one company, you gotta let off some slides on another company. You have to be completely neutral sometimes in wrestling. It's very hard to do, but I have the mentality of being neutral, making sure I call it down the middle and just call it like it is. This show was pretty decent. There's some really bad matches in here that I'll talk about in a minute, but overall, I was very thoroughly entertained. I didn't fall asleep, I didn't turn it off, I was actually entertained for the most part on the pay-per-view. Same as remember I watched AEW's one of their pay-per-views before, it was with Goldust and Cody Rhodes. I was entertained by that match. So I'm going to call it down the middle, and that's the way I'm going to do it. So just to kind of summarize. So there was a pre-show match for the women's tag team titles. It was alright, it was pretty decent, it was okay. It was alright, you know. Ric Flair did some kind of weird, I don't know what they're doing with this Ric Flair, Lacey Evans thing. I don't really particularly care. It's a kickoff show, let's be honest, nobody watched it. Drew McIntyre versus Goldberg. This is a match of two halves. Number one, I'm very happy this was at the start of the show. I think this would have lowered the overall pay-per-view if this was halfway through the show. I think, obviously, let's be honest, Goldberg's quite limited to what he can do in the ring. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think sometimes doing less sometimes can be better. Sometimes doing more can be actually worse. I think Goldberg told a story. I think Drew McIntyre told a story. Them two now have mutual respect. That's it. I thought this was a good match at the start of the pay-per-view. Now, I will say this. If this match started halfway through the pay-per-view or started towards the end, then yes, this would actually lower it, but overall, I was thoroughly entertained for the most part. It was very brief. You don't need to have matches that are 20 minutes, people. You don't need to have a match that's with full of these false finishes, and I know there was a ton of false finishes in this here, but the whole flips and stuff, sometimes you just gotta tell a story. It served its purpose. It's built Drew McIntyre as a legitimate champion. More than likely, he's going to be heading into the to WrestleMania. It makes him look strong. Goldberg, I think, is pretty much done. I can't see Goldberg going for any more championships, and I can't actually see Goldberg going for any more. He was in somewhat decent shape, but you can see in comparison to his other debuts, he wasn't in the best shape in comparison to those. And I do believe that we probably won't see Goldberg again. I think they might have one final match with him, and then that'll be it. But I think for the most part, he's not going to be on the show as much. I know some people are going to cheer, and then you got that idiot Matt Riddle, who, I'll be honest, I'll take Goldberg over Matt Riddle any day. I know it's going to trigger some people, but forgive me, am I wrong, but I prefer, like, I would rather have a Goldberg with a limited moveset who looks like a champion than some wacky, hippie, buck teeth looking gimp who doesn't wear any shoes. There's an old saying goes, if you see someone without any shoes and they wear sandals, don't trust them, because they're probably swingers. Anyway, I thought it was alright. It was decent enough for what it was. It was okay. Overall, it is what it is. Sasha Banks versus Carmella. People were praising this match. I thought it was trash. I actually watched it, the whole thing. There was botches that was happening. I felt that the interference from this guy was cheap. I did not like it, and in fact, I actually, to be honest with you, I wanted Carmella to win. That's not good. You know what I mean? I kind of wanted Carmella to win. But there was a lot of botches in this from Carmella and also Sasha Banks. There was like I think it was a part where she was going to pick her up, and then they got confused, and then this looked like a show that you would probably see on SmackDown. You know what I mean? Like, this is like something that you would probably see on SmackDown, to be honest with you. So, it didn't stand out to me, personally. The Women's Royal Rumble match. I do believe that this match was decent for what it was. Could have picked a better person to win. I know it's going to make people angry. What are you talking about? Blanchard Belair's, Belair's good. She's great. She's fantastic. Why? Why is she great? Like, this is the thing with some of these wrestling fans. They see some up-and-comer and then immediately just jump on the boat and go, yes, we're all for you. And then a few weeks later, they'll get sick of her. If you were going to go down this route, like have an outsider win, I would have said Naomi, like at least to please some of the weirdo fans in there. Maybe have Naomi win, you know, or, you know, there's way better female competitors that could have won this. I'm glad Charlotte Flair didn't win because she's won way too much, just personally for me. But I need to see more of this girl. Like, her gimmick is she has a long ponytail. Like, that's not a women's champion, you know what I mean? Like, Becky Lynch, like, as much as people cringe at her with the whole, and it was annoying, it started getting annoying, a lot of people forget this, but it was getting really annoying towards the end, where Becky Lynch was, like, trying to act like Stone Cold Steve Austin. I'd rather take that than, my gimmick is I have long hair. I didn't see anything impressive. In fact, she botched towards the end. Some of you these so-called wrestling fans seem to think that they know everything. She actually botched it at the end. Both her legs landed on the floor, and then one of the girls that she was with turned and says, "Okay, everyone, calm down, and like, yeah, I think they recovered for that story. But I think she really did nearly mess up the Royal Rumble, because there's a picture of it where her 2 feet are landing on the ground, like, clearly. So if she's such a great competitor, how could she mess that up, you know? I'm sorry, but I have to see more of her. I'm not ruling her out. I'm sure, I mean, there's still, another month or two before WrestleMania to build her up and stuff like that, but I don't know, there's just nothing that stands out to me about this girl. Like, I'm sorry, I think that there's just better competitors out there. Just for me, you know. On the subject of it, Jesus Christ, they buried Alexa Bliss, something shocking in there. She was like about to transform, like, I don't know, like turn into fucking Frieza from Dragon Ball. And she's just like, raw, and then they just throw her out. I don't know, I thought Alexa Bliss maybe should have won it, or, you know, Maybe Naomi if you're gonna go down that route, you know what I mean? But I don't know. Also, I watch some of these women in this Royal Rumble, and they either have one of two things. They want to look like a punk rocker. They all look like Power Rangers. Like, there's no women in this that actually stand out. They all got this, like, I don't know what it is, like this Ramona Flowers, Harley Quinn type style that women are going for now. And if you want to go for that style, absolutely. You know what I mean? I remember I had styles back in the day that were quite questionable. You know what I mean? But can we stop all these women with like multicolored hair dyes and like really weird tattoos and like, I get it, like some of these women do stand out. There's some women that can pull it off, like I think Paige can pull it off. There's some women that can pull this kind of look off, but they all look the same. They're trying to look individual, but they all look the same. Like with this multicolored hair dye and this, like, no disrespect to them, but some of them look like meth addicts. Like, and this goes for the men as well, by the way. Some of the men and the male wrestlers in here just don't look like male wrestlers, like, just for me. But, like, some of these women look like full-blown meth heads. I don't know why no one calls this out, but like every time a woman came down the ring, I didn't know who they were. They had multiple hair dye, just several tattoos, and it's just that they all look the same. Like at least you can say about the Belair girl, she's got one thing that stands out. She's got long hair, but it's like WWE. Can we please mix the diversity of kind of how these women individually look, because they all look the same. They all got these multicolored hair dyes and this cracked out meth out look. Stop it. Okay? I'm just saying, I'm just saying. You know what I mean? Anyway. It was a Belair one, that was it. Roman Reigns versus Kevin Owens. Very decent match. Thought it was very good. Roman's getting a lot of shit at the moment because of the Undertaker thing. I do agree, Roman should he just should have just shut his mouth up about, I watched the Smart Busters video actually, that came out yesterday, and yeah, like, Roman just needs to shut up about the Undertaker. Just shut up, Roman. Shut up. I'm gonna put that aside, and I want to say this. I think Roman did very well. He, like, rammed Kevin Owens with a golf cart. He just went fucking yow. He just rammed Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens had a really cool spot with a swanton on top of like a forklift. This was actually one of the best last man standing matches that I've seen in quite a long time. I hated the whole John Cena last man standing gimmicks about 10 years ago. This actually looks like a legit, they legit look like they were gonna try and kill each other without the concept of blood and all that there, you know what I mean? I know Roman was busted open a little bit, but like, they presented it in a way that these two men really, really, really hate each other, and I think that's good. I thought it was a pretty decent match. Obviously, oh yeah, this is the funniest part. Paul Heyman trying to get Roman Reigns' handcuffs off were just the most funniest thing. Because what happened was, people didn't pick this up, but Paul Heyman could not open the arm cuffs. Alright? So then, so the referee's counting it down, and if you watch closely, the referee actually stops counting because he realizes that Paul Heyman can't get the arm cuffs off. Nobody in any reviews kind of mentioned this. But I noticed it. I noticed these kind of like little small things. But like, look at back on it. He's like sitting like out there, and they'll probably edit it. But he's like sitting like out there, and then they said, "Oh, Roman's in a vertical base or something. That means that they can't count it." I'm like, oh bullshit. Like, you know, if you're gonna get arm cuffs, like get actually better ones. But you can see Paul Heyman just doing this. This is kind of funny, but Roman won. I thought this was a decent match, to say the least. The Men's Royal Rumble. The Men's Royal Rumble. I'll admit, in comparison to past Royal Rumbles, I think the last one last year was pretty decent with Edge showing up, but other than that, there wasn't really anything special. There was actually surprise things like Carlito was in here. Christian obviously showed up. Edge started at number 1, which I immediately thought he was going to lose. So here's a bit of perspective. Doing some of that research. Originally, Seth Rollins was going to win this. Okay, no, originally it was Daniel Bryan was going to win. He was the outright favorite. Then yesterday morning, it just changed. It says Seth Rollins is going to win. Edge was like 10-1 to win. And I was like, oh no, please no. Like, honestly, I would have ranted my ass off if Seth Rollins won this. Thankfully, Seth Rollins didn't win. I'm so happy he did not win. I'll be the first one to admit, I did not see Randy Orton coming back again. I know that's like, everyone was like, oh, I predicted it. I actually forgot all about it. I have to say they did pretty well with that. But then as soon as I seen Randy Orton, I was like, no, don't win. I'm so happy Orton didn't win. I think he'll win one. At one point he'll tie with Stone Cold Steve Austin, but Edge winning was the right choice. So let's get into the controversy of this. There is, let's be honest, majority of the indie fans are angry at Edge winning for whatever reason, because they believe that he's old and he shouldn't be winning the Rumble. Despite the fact that they have someone exactly the same age as Edge, Chris Jericho, winning the World Championship, but then they turn around and say, oh, but that was the right choice then. You know, look, I hate to kind of tick off the AEW fans, but Edge winning the Royal Rumble had more significance than anything Kenny Omega has done with his title run in AEW. If you don't see the major difference between star power and star power, then you have no concept of what wrestling is. I'm sorry, but this comparison of AEW versus WWE is getting to the point where people are just making excuse, like the fact that you have to make an excuse for another company goes to show me that you are just blind sheep that cannot call it. I said this before, I remember when AEW had its first show, I was the first one to admit that it was amazing. But then these same fans then ridicule the Royal Rumble because they're AEW fans. It's ridiculous to me. It's ridiculous that these people are saying that Edge should not win the Royal Rumble. But yet you got Chris Jericho as a world champ. You have Sting returning. I have nothing against that. I think it's fantastic Sting's back. I think it's amazing. I'm looking forward to Sting being there. But like, you can't have one thing and not have the other. You know, I hate to kind of bring it up, but I just seen this on my Facebook feed, and it's like, do you people even enjoy wrestling? Do you just watch wrestling just to score points against the other? Like, are we that disdained that we're now scoring points because it's not our camp? It's not our camp. You know what I mean? I just find it absolutely ridiculous. But anyway, personally, I'm gonna give this pay-per-view a 7 out of 10, which I think's generous. It could have been an 8 if some of the matches were a bit better, but I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. It's above average, so 5's average, 6 and 7, it's slightly above average. I think Edge was a deciding factor on that for actually being it. I was thoroughly enjoyed. I actually was thoroughly entertained. This could have got an 8 if they just had better matches. Really, but overall, I was very, very entertained and absolutely amazing. I generally did think this was a decent pay-per-view. If you can't tell a difference between a good pay-per-view and a bad pay-per-view, then you just need to analyze yourself as a wrestling fan. This whole scoring points and can we just stop it? It isn't TNA. Like, the same people do the same thing. TNA versus WWE. Fucking NXT versus WWE. Ironic now that those very people that were defending NXT are now the people that are pro AEW. It's like, come on, people. Can we just stop? Can we just call it like it is and just say, you know, then just admit it. That was actually good. I'll be the first one to admit there's some matches in AEW that are decent. But you gotta call it down like it is. Anyways, General Jerry on the Wrestling Juggernauts channel, signing out.